Yeah, Brian, there was mayhem. Originally, people thought there was one shooter, then it went up to 2 and 3 shooters at the same time. I spent quite a bit of time with Tory MP Maurice Vellicott, and basically he was inside of Centre Block at the time around 9:30 this morning when he heard shots fired. He was actually taking a group of students and moms and dads on a tour of Parliament Hill when he heard shots fired. They hit the ground. A security escorted them out at the same time. He says they're used to fire drills, but nothing like they've ever seen before. Police were there with their guns drawn and the long rifles at the same time. They were escorted out, and he says in his 18 years as a parliamentarian, he's never seen anything like it. Then later in the day, I had a chance to catch up with one of the NDP press secretaries, Marc-Andre Vailloux, and he had a kind of a different picture. He was at Centre Block. He heard about 15 shots being fired at that time, and they were escorted out of Centre Block right away. And at the same time, he said armed officers came in, guns drawn, and he heard about another 15 or 20 shots. Now, just behind me is the cenotaph where the soldier was killed today, and I spoke with another journalist who was at the scene. His office wasn't too far from there at the time, and he said he saw, and he knew right away that it was a soldier because he had decorated boots, army boots at the same time. And when he was down, he said there was blood everywhere. They were pumping his chest, the paramedics at the time, and they loaded him into the ambulance. So there was mayhem. By the way, the Tory MP that I was speaking with, Vellicott, also told me that 2 of his staff are still locked in Parliament Hill, and they were told to stay away from windows because police told them there might be a sniper on one of the roofs here. So there's been mayhem and lockdown all throughout downtown Ottawa.
Yeah, those decorated boots of Corporal Cirillo that you're talking about, the red and white spats worn by the Argylls under their kilts. He was in a kilt today, and as Glengarry when shot at close range. I understand there were several school groups going through, and for people that aren't used to going through Parliament, there's always a lot of tourists going through, a lot of school groups. I heard a couple of reports of parents and teachers and the MPs that were escorting them. Often MPs escort local school tours through, that the adults were separated from the kids. But in the end, I guess all children safe and accounted for, Hal?
Yes, pretty much. I mean, it was really a miracle that nobody else was injured or killed just from the shots being fired, and the fact that it's a miracle that many of the parents have been reunited with their children, Brian.
All right, the mood outside as I'm guessing crowds gathering to watch, but at one point a security perimeter quite wide throughout much of downtown Ottawa. Fill us in on what that was like going through the city today. It's normally a very peaceful, quiet city, and yet today police presence everywhere. Walk us through that.
Yeah, it was quite interesting because as soon as shots were fired, as you know, I mean, our offices are on Queen, a couple of blocks from the Hill. I ran up to Parliament Hill, and right away, police were there with their semi-automatic rifles, ordering us to get down off the hill. And not just at that point in time, but they pushed us back a block, another block. That's when I hooked up with the Tory MP and other witnesses talking about the accounts of what transpired today. And the police actually wanted us to go indoors because they were worried again for a sniper on the roof. But many of the doors of the businesses were locked, so we could not get into the buildings. So we kept getting pushed further and further back. We ended up around 5 blocks away from the Hill.
All right, so I know that some of those lockdowns have been lifted, and yet many people unable to get home because they've been told, we're not letting you take your vehicles out of the parking garages in the area. So people being told, what, take public transit home today? It's still semi-lockdown at this point?
It is pretty much. You know, a lot of the people that have their cars and underground park aids here in Ottawa, they will basically have to have a very expensive cab ride to go home or take public transit. That is correct.
All right, Hal Roberts, near the National War Memorial where Corporal Cirillo shot and killed today. Thanks so much, Hal.